Almost there. All right, we are live and you may begin whenever you're ready, Michael.
All right, awesome. Welcome everybody to tonight's February 18th, 2025 full design review board meeting. I'll call us to quorum. We have, I believe, 8 out of our 9 members present. Staff, is that right? Did I miss somebody? I think we have 8. Maybe we have all 9.
You
Anyway,
have 8. Sarah's the only one
Sarah's
missing.
the only one missing. Yeah, so we have quorum 8 out of 9, so we are good to get started. I am looking to approve tonight's agenda.
So move.
There's a motion. Do I hear a second?
Mike Beal, second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any against? All right, motion passes. I'm now, do we have any meeting minutes, staff, that we need to approve?
Yes, January 21st, 28th, February 4th, February 11th.
All right, do I hear a motion to approve January 21st, January 28th, February 4th, and February 11th meeting minutes?
So moved.
We have a motion by Mike B.
Second.
Second by John. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any against? All right, motion passes 8-0. Now I'm looking for any general member comments that are not related to any matters tonight. It's a public meeting. Just raise your hand virtually or physically on the camera and staff will look for you. I'm scanning through. I don't see anybody. So I think we are good to get started. Up first, we have 11449 Waterview Cluster. This is an appeal. Is the appellant here? I believe I saw Neil.
I'm here.
Hey, Neil.
Hi.
Welcome back. Sorry about last time.
Things happen.
So we're good. We have a quorum. We are good to review your appeal. So if you want to walk us through your appeal, you need to state a misapplied guideline or cluster standard or some new information. Take it away.
Sure. First of all, I want to thank you, Jen Hare, for putting up with how long this has taken. I'm imagine that you guys are as surprised as we are. So I'm the covenants officer. I've been here in Waterview for about a year in that position, and trying to uphold cluster standards. And the original DRB panel, we kind of jumped right to some issues back then, and maybe should have started by being clear that we have a cluster standard for patios. This is a patio, and the cluster standard seems very clear that patios may include low stone or brick walls, quoting, but may not be completely enclosed. And for this property, the pavers are proposed to cover the majority of the rear yard, and the board fence fully enclosed it. And the fence is a full height privacy fence. It's not open in any way. The patio is fully enclosed solidly, which it seems is clearly in violation of the Waterview Cluster patio standard. And the original panel decision does not even mention this standard in the decision. As it currently stands, the decision seems to say, by not addressing this full enclosure part of our standard, that a full privacy fence enclosure is allowed, which is not true. And it's a very, very bad precedent from Waterview Cluster Board's viewpoint. It's not something that we want to not even be addressed in the decision. It needs to be addressed. The fence should be addressed relative to our cluster standard, which does not allow full enclosure. And we believe the current decision ignores our standard and is thereby misapplied. And to the extent that the original panel may have not known that our standard was that clear, that would also be new information. So we think the appeal should be granted.
Okay. And to be clear, so I've seen 2 pictures. There's a board-on-board fence in one that looks rather old, and then there's a black ornamental fence. What is the existing condition right now?
This property that's not this property. This property has a board fence,
Gotcha.
a solid board fence. It's that picture there.
This one.
And
Okay.
it's full height. It's the only 90 homes in Waterview. This is the only one that has that condition.
So it was an existing condition though, and you're saying basically this was not addressed when they were redoing the patio, and it should have been taken to effect that this should not be allowed.
It should be addressed in some fashion, so that there's a record of it. That's the way I see it. Even if I think that it needs to be addressed to come into compliance with the standard. That's what the Waterview board would like to see. But even if the DRB decided to not do that, there should be something in the decision that mentions it because it's part of our standard. And to be entirely silent on it, you could say that was a incomplete decision, perhaps, even if the intent was to not do anything other than allow it. It's entirely silent on the issue. And when it's this clear in the standard, it seems to me that I don't want to be too adamant, but it seems like it should be addressed to me.
But the patio itself and the patio finish is not something you're appealing. You're just appealing the fact that
No.
it is.
And you, Jen, and I have said, and I don't mind saying this to the board, that if he had just done the patio, we wouldn't have known because he's got a solid board fence around the whole thing. But because he applied for it, it brings it into scrutiny, and we can't ignore it. And I don't think the DRB should ignore it either, because otherwise we have no standards, and our standards aren't being considered. The standard is in our patio standard. It's not a separate issue. It's integral to the patio. It's part of the patio standards.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So on the panel, and sorry, Eugen, sorry, the applicant cannot speak until the appeal can be heard all the way. So just give me a second to go through here real quick. So the panel members, Emily and Samantha, do you guys remember even knowing that there was an existing fence? Because even when I was reviewing the application, I didn't really understand honestly that there was an existing fence, and that was I mean, I guess I see it now in the picture. There's, it's clearly there in the picture, but did you guys understand that was kind of not a part of the application, but was a factor that you guys
Right.
should
So
be
Michael, I do
considering?
remember this application and looking at the fence. The reason that we voted the way that, or at least I voted the way that I did, is because we viewed this as an application for the patio and its removal and replacement, and not a application for the fence. I will say in most cluster standards, there's both a patio standard and a fencing standard. The fact that these two are sort of combined to me is a little conflated, because for what we're looking at here, to just remove these pavers and then replace them with other pavers is kind of replacing in kind, and not touching the fence. Now, if they wanted to go and put in a new fence, that would need to be brought into the clustered standard that it's not in conformance with at this point. But since this application was solely for the replacement of the patio, that was our interpretation, that we weren't affecting the fence. That's something that would need to be brought into up to standard if they wanted to update and install a new fence or remove it.
Okay.
I don't know, Samantha?
Yes, I am pretty much in line with Emily on the decision as well. I think the fence is not part of this application. However, I do think there should be another different vehicle to address the fence, because fence in Reston is not grandfathered. That is my understanding. And my understanding, this fence is from previous owner. So I do feel we should find a correct vehicle to address that issue instead of combine with this patio application.
Okay. So, Tony, can I ask you a question?
Of
Is it
course.
possible is it possible to an amend like an approval that we have that basically gives some wording, additional wording that says that all cluster standards must be met with the installation of the new patio? Because that's usually normal jargon we put in an approval letter, but in this instance, I don't think that was put in.
Can you amend a decision? Well, no, not at this point because there's an appeal pending.
Okay. I just was curious. Okay. Does anyone have any questions for the appellant?
Negative.
I do, or maybe for my colleagues. The fence never got approval, right?
That would be a
Not as
question
part
for
of the
staff, I would
decision letter.
assume.
Yeah, not according to this decision letter in front of us, right?
So
So-
it seems to me that, and I'm trying to be logical here. If the approval was for the patio, then it seems like the fence is a separate violation that needs to be raised as a covenant violation or a guideline violation.
I think the issue is the appellant is saying it's part of their patio guidelines, therefore should have been a part of the review process as
Yeah,
when we reviewed it, because it's in their patio guidelines that, they shouldn't be enclosed.
understand.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. That's what I'm understanding. I think to me, it could be fixed with just a simple note in the approval that says all patio installation must meet the guidelines of the
Did-
cluster patio guidelines.
Can I ask my colleagues if they understood that in the patio guidelines, there was a stipulation about, is this new information that this is contained in the patio guidelines?
I don't think that I would consider it new information, because again, it said, we did review the cluster standards and saying that the patios may include low stone or brick walls, but may not be completely enclosed. But the enclosure was not part of the application, just the patio space. So I do feel, and I agree with Samantha that, we could look at this and open it back up, and try and adjust our wording for the approval to include that it must be brought in line with cluster standards, but I wouldn't consider it new information.
We could
Well,
just say,
then the way, I'm sorry, but the way you explained it to me, I would consider it a misapplication of the guidelines and that it needs to be reopened. And just going off of your explanation and, that we need to give an appropriate decision for it. So that's my position.
I'll make a motion to accept the appeal.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any against? Any abstentions? Emily and Samantha, you're abstaining. And so the motion passes 6-0-2. I'd like someone just to take a stab at the new motion with the correct wording. I just think I think that's all it needs.
It's a de novo review, so the owner has a right to introduce his application, and the affected party has a right to respond as well.
Okay. Is the applicant here?
I'm right here.
All right, sir,
Hey,
would you
how you
like to
doing,
present
guys?
your application again?
Yeah, so if we can just go back to the primary issue, I'm just trying to fix things that are broke, right? So we have the front walk pathway, it's cracked, I want to fix that. It's leaking like crazy in the patio, I want to fix that. When I purchased the place, the folks in the Resident Association was on top of everything. They explained to me that the folks at the Resident Association looks at all the applicants and all the violations, and they went through it. So my position with all this is kind of like daunting in that, if you look at those pictures that I submitted, if you go all the way back to my next door neighbors, so if you look down, when you say that right there, there is, if you go up a little bit more to one more picture up, there is a 6 feet tall enclosed brick fence in my backyard, right behind my backyard. If you look at the overall, all those blue marks are my neighbors who actually have full enclosed fences that are 6 feet in height. I measured them. So my position was very clear to folks in the Resident Association. Can you please verify that every one of them, I can't imagine that none of those guys actually went through a build without the approval, because I know that's one of the very first Resident Association developments. They scrutinized my little lamp that I had to fix. I had to buy one in Pennsylvania, and I adhered to all the rules. I can't imagine that Resident Association doesn't have a file with all the approved fences. So I just asked the Resident Association a long time ago, can you verify that all my neighbors, and including me, because I bought the place in 2009, that fence was there for 30 years prior to my purchase. So that's been there for almost 40 years. As you can see, it's decrepit. I want to fix it. I want to replace it. That was a separate line item for me. I'm more than happy to create another line item or another submission for another fence that looks just like the one on the left of that, which is an enclosed fence. My position is that 7 out of my 12 neighbors are all in violation of this precedent that Neil is starting to, is willing to take a bullet for. My position is that then Resident Associates has not been doing their due diligence of going around my neighbor to make sure that no one else is in violation, because I feel like I'm being picked on, right? So all I did was trying to make an improvement, and then I feel like there's 8-9 months. I mean, I started talking to the folks in Resident Association back in August. August of 2024, right? So it just seems bewildering to me that it's going to take me this long. And again, and Neil and I agreed. He goes, look, Eugen, I just have to, I totally get his position, because he's saying, look at the standards. It says no enclosed. And I'm just going to go back with the simple basic question. 7 out of my 12 neighbors in my backyard have fences and they're enclosed. So if you tell me that I'm the only one violating the rules, I don't want to say my response to that, but it just seems crazy to me. So I think, Ms. Garrison, you said you had the right questions. You said all the right things, like, we have to adhere to so we don't violate. I'm telling you, 7 out of my 12 neighbors are all must have had an approval. I can't imagine, because they were so stringent when I moved there. So I would beg Resident Association to do their due diligence and go back and look at all those houses that already have a fence and see the approvals, because I can't imagine that they don't. And if you're going to say that I violated it, then everyone else should be adhered to the same rules, not just me.
Staff, have we looked into these, especially these black ornamental fences? Have those have gone through full approvals and have proper DRB applications?
But they're in the same violation of that. That violation doesn't say if.
I know. Hold on, sir. Just I want to know if those are actually approved before we start arguing about them, because I don't know. They're very well, people put up stuff all the time without approval. So I'm just asking. Staff, do we have any approvals for those ornamental fences?
For the ornamental fences, I can take a look at them to see if we do have approval. I don't have that information before me at this moment.
If I could just jump in, approval or not, I think we need clarity for what is being asked for in terms of enforcement of the cluster standard, because the presence of the fence, if the owner didn't install it, the current owner didn't install it, are we suggesting that the cluster standard is going to require removal of a fence in order to move forward with the patio project? Or are we saying that the cluster is asking for specific language to address their concern that when the need for the fence to be addressed happens, the owner is aware that the fence needs to be removed because it does not comply with the the cluster standard. Those are two separate things, in my opinion, and I think the DRB needs to be very clear as to what direction you're going in, regardless of what the other properties have or don't have.
Right. I
So-
guess my argument, what I was trying to figure out was the guideline was from 1993. If let's say this fence was put in prior to 1993, right, and no improvements have been done since, that then nothing needs to come in compliance with this guideline. But if someone puts in something that is new, which is what they're doing with the new patio, then therefore it should have followed the guideline that's the latest and greatest guideline. If beforehand it was allowed, fine, it can stay. We're not saying you need to tear it down. But if you make an improvement that addresses that specific grandfathered in item, it then needs to come up to current cluster standard. That's essentially I think the argument here, like this block wall or brick wall that we're looking at on the screen, that thing's probably been there since 1965 when Waterview was built. And they probably, who knows if they've done any application in the back. We don't know, but theoretically the same situation would happen if they did a new patio according to these guidelines, and maybe Waterview needs to look at amending their guidelines. I don't know. That's why I wanted to ask about the black fence to see if those had been approved, because then there has been a precedent set that then we could request the cluster that they should reevaluate their guideline. Because they've already, there's already been approvals in the past to fully enclose a backyard with fencing, whether it's board on board or a black ornamental fence or whatever. That's why I was trying to figure out whether we do have in fact approvals on those, because then the gentleman is correct in saying there's kind of already been this precedent set. Why am I now being, singled out? I want a cluster to govern itself, basically. So I want to make sure they have clear guidelines so that we don't have to be adjudicating this, because this is,
Totally understood, Michael. Just to be sure that we're on the same page, though, regardless of precedent or not, there's a 1993 decision from the cluster of what is and what is not acceptable. And so even if those had prior approvals or they were there at inception, the cluster's position has been clear that they don't want their patios enclosed. So even if we went back and looked at every single property, I don't necessarily think that that's going to adjust the 2 points that I made earlier, which is whether or not we're requiring this property owner to remove their fence or comply at a certain point in time.
Okay. Camelia?
One thing I just wanted to say is the current homeowner bought this property in 2010. It is a responsibility, in my opinion, of RA to identify the violations when a homeowner is considering selling a property or a prospective applicant is considering buying a property. For example, when I purchased my property, I was given a list of the violations that the seller had incurred. At the same time, we should see if the current homeowner received a list of those violations. This is also on RA, in my opinion, not just on the cluster, but back in 2010, this should have been flagged for the current homeowner, and it shouldn't just be coming up now.
Yeah, and to our understanding, this was never caught on a POA, even from 2010. I don't know if I'm assuming we keep records of that, but is that correct, Cam? This was not on a POA?
I'm not sure staff should answer that question in open session. That's a property rights issue for the property owner.
Okay. I mean,
Mr. Chair?
we review POAs all the time, but maybe I'm misunderstanding.
Mr. Chair,
Mhm.
if we're going to continue down this path of making statements of what ARA could or should have done, I'd like a brief executive session, please.
Okay. I'll motion for an executive session
For the purpose of consulting with legal counsel.
to
Second,
consult with legal counsel.
second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any against? All right, motion passes 8-0. We'll be right back, everybody. Sorry, everyone, we're having some technical difficulty. We're gonna break back out for executive session. We're just dealing with some technical difficulties. Thank you.
Excuse me.
All right, thank you for being patient. Tony, can you help me with the cleansing motion, please?
Mr. Chair, I believe I heard you make a motion that the DRB members certify to the best of each and every one of their knowledge that only those matters appropriate for discussion in executive session, being that consultation with legal counsel, were heard or discussed in executive session.
Yes, that is what I just said. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor, say aye.
I
Aye. Any against? Any abstentions? All right. We are good to go back. So, Emily, I think you want to ask Neil, all right, we haven't heard from the affected party yet on this de novo application. If we could unmute the affected party, and if I will ask him a question. So Neil, what is the cluster? What do you guys ultimately want done with?
Thank you for asking. Because this really is very simple from my perspective. We want UGen to be able to proceed with this project, and we would like the existing decision to be amended. We're fine with it the way it was made the first time. It's not going to be amended. The new decision to reflect the original decision, with the exception that it also include language to say that the board recognizes the existing board fence does not meet the cluster standards, and the homeowner will make application at such time as it's replaced, is what we suggested. If that doesn't suit the DRB, it suited Mr. Hare and us, but if it doesn't suit the DRB, then something has to be done now. But we don't like holding up his patio. I mean, we 100% appreciate that he's trying to improve his property. We're also just trying to protect our standard in this known application. And I want to be clear, this is not a guideline. This is a standard. There's a difference. Not to lecture, but Reston has guidelines, but clusters have standards. And we have no fence standard. Everything has to be applied for that's a fence. We know this fence hasn't been applied for. We don't know about the other fences because we're not party to that for homeowner privacy and so forth. So that's what we were looking for was, and we could have gotten it. I just want to say this, and then you can mute me. I think we could have gotten this in the original panel, but I was put on mute and the decision got made, and there's no way for an affected party to amend a decision once you've made it. So we appealed it, and this is sort of annoying, for lack of a better word, because it really, we're not asking for much. We just want to be on the record that this is not, because while it may not look like a big deal to some of you in this particular location, we have a lot of homes and a lot of different types of locations where this sort of fence would really be a big deal. And, we think it is here too, but we don't want to set the precedent. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. Okay. So for the applicant, do you understand? And I'm sure you do. Do you understand kind of what he's suggesting with that there would need to be an application at replacement or,
Absolutely. Neil and I spoke about this, and we're in 100% agreement. When I purchased I did get a laundry list, and I think there are certain things that may have been said that I think I disagree with. The only thing I disagree with Neil is that we don't know if this board fence had an approval before. I asked the Reston Association to do the homework in association with that statement, because I believe that most likely it was approved, just like the 7 other enclosed fences. So I think it'll be, from just a due diligence, it'll be wise for a Reston Association to look at their archive files to find out if they were approved. And to the gentleman that prior said that, if I make any changes post 1993, that I would have to then adhere to this rule. My position is that I'm just replacing I'm fixing an existing one from like kind. I'm not making any alterations to the size or anything else. I'm just fixing something that is currently broken. So, for me to adhere to a standard and then that doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I have a lot of homes, and this is the first time I heard that I can't do a like-kind replacement, and I'm going to go through the scrutiny of the standard.
Okay,
Michael, if I may take a crack at a motion?
please.
Okay. I think having heard both the affected party and the homeowner, I would like to make a motion to approve the patio replacement as submitted with the caveat that the existing fence is not in compliance with current cluster standards and should not set a precedent for other homeowners in the cluster, and that it would need to be brought in conformance upon replacement or transfer of the property. That is my motion.
I like that.
Amendment
the
to that,
motion.
that it would have to come into compliance with the then current cluster standard.
Amendment accepted, yes, with the then current cluster standard.
I'll second that motion then. Thank you.
All right, so there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
I
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes 8-0. Thank you for your patience, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, moving on to 12727 Hitchcock Court. We have another appeal. Is the appellant here? I think the appellant is the homeowner in this case.
The appellant is the affected party.
Oh, the effect. Oh, wait, I'm thinking of the next one. Sorry. All right, is the appellant here?
Correction, the appellant is the homeowner.
That's what I thought. Okay, you were confusing me. I was like, wait a second.
Don't mean to confuse you. One moment.
I saw them join at some point.
Hi. Can you
How's
hear
it
me?
going?
Hello.
All right. So you guys are appealing our decision. So you guys need to prove that there was a misapplied guideline, or there is some new information that we did not consider, or both, which is what you have checked on your appeal form here. So if you could walk us through kind of what you're appealing, and we'll then ask you any questions if we have any, okay?
Sure. Yeah. So we had an original a proposal that was we had to adjust, right? So we had to resubmit a new plan. So that was approved with 3 caveats. And we're fine with the caveats except for one, which is to level the back patio with the side walkways. So we're appealing that first caveat based on some misapplied guidelines. So I'll just go through this. In the document, project conformance, section landscaping planning and related structures, page 12, the following is stated: walkways and patios must be securely constructed, flat and level, and set into the natural contours of the ground. So from our perspective, there's 3 aspects of these guidelines that are misapplied. First, these guidelines indicate that walkways and patios must be flat, level, and set into natural contours of the ground. They don't state that all patios and walkways within a given residential property must be level with each other. So right now we've made the back patio itself is flat and level, and each sideway walkway is flat and level. So the fact that the back patio is slightly more elevated than the side walkways due to the contour of the grounds is not contradicting the guidelines. And then the main issue is leveling these 3 structures to be even in height with each other would shunt drainage towards the home and be detrimental to the property, which we describe in our appeal in part 2, new information. We can go over that if you like. But that's the main issue is leveling it would cause more damage, and that's kind of what the issue was originally when we adjusted it. So that's basically our contention, is we just are open to doing the other caveats, but just the one with the leveling with the patio and the side walkways.
Okay. Who was on the original panel that was on this decision, staff?
It was Samantha and I.
Yes.
Okay, you two getting in trouble.
Yep.
Okay. So the guideline, so I guess maybe you guys can help. What did your decision mean exactly with bringing them all into the same level? Because I was a little confused because there are a couple elevations. There's a bunch of, I mean, there's kind of a bunch of elevations. So was your thought process just to try to bring them all to one level, even though the grade around the house is not one level?
My suggestion was that more or less, I wasn't telling them what they needed to do per se, but that either through a mortar bed and some kind of veneer stone, some kind of scratch coat of concrete, that these be made level. Because at the moment, I would not consider this patio flat and level. It is sloping away from the house, which is fine for drainage, as the homeowner mentioned, but I would not consider this a step. It's not significant enough to be two different levels of a patio, since it is both sloping and not tall enough to be an actual change in grade. And I think it's splitting hairs to call one a patio and one a side walkway, and neither of them to be flat or level. So my suggestion was that they, through some means of material, make it so that this is a smooth surface, that it looks like it has been constructed in a workmanlike manner, because the current patio and adjacent walkways are not harmonious and do not look like they've been constructed in a workmanlike manner and do not appear to be flat and level.
Okay. Elena?
The way I hear us using the term level and hearing Emily's explanation and seeing that slight change in elevation as not being large enough to be a step and more of a tripping hazard, would you say that the decision was to make it a contiguous surface without abrupt changes in elevation, which may be what the concern is, because it's easy to have a slope, if it's a contiguous surface and it not level in the sense of you can put a level down and the bubble's going to show you that you're level, but it's smooth and contiguous, but still slopes away from the house and slopes down from the patio to the outer edge of the walkway, probably in a compound slope, so that you're going like 1/4 of an inch to a foot or something like that, where when you're walking, you don't perceive it as a change in elevation, but it is. Am I explaining that well enough?
Very eloquently put. Thank you, Elena.
So the way I'm hearing it, I think it's a misinterpretation of the use of the word level. I think that maybe clarifying that in this case, that level means a smooth transition. And I don't know we cannot change a decision, but I would like to clarify that for the homeowner.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for the appellant? You guys can unmute the appellant, by the way. You can. Satine, do you have a question?
No, yeah. So if we were to, let's say, add some concrete to that area and make it all level, that would kind of meet what you guys need. Is that fair to say?
It would be, I'm speaking for myself, but and I would want one of my colleagues to agree, but it would be kind of like the level that your shower floor is, right?
No, I'm saying that step down area, if we added concrete there to match it and slope it all, so that would meet your requirements. So
yes.
Okay.
Does anyone on the panel disagree with what I just said?
No, I think at that time we did explain that
Mhm.
it's not the elevation level, is the continuous surface. It probably the way we saying it was not clear. But I remember way back that time we did explain how we want it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe our wording was to mimic the guidelines, which specify flat and level rather than saying contiguous surface, but that was the intention, was to have it all be one contiguous surface so that there aren't small trip hazards and that this looks intentional. And I would say that there are, if we look at page 20, as long as I'm not mistaken and I'm getting turned around on this site, there are two sides of this, and there's a slight little level change on either side. So the request would be to have the full surround brought into one contiguous surface.
Right. So it would be a mini little ramp up to the higher elevation. Is there a way that, and this is a question for staff, is there a way that we can make a note to staff for when they are reviewing the completed project to make that clear what the intent was?
You mean to add that to the approval letter or the suggested motion?
Well, I think we've learned that we cannot change the approval letter, but can we provide notes to staff clarifying what the approval letter's intent was?
Yes.
Okay.
Just so I'm clear on this other part, you would want this all raised to one level. So that little reduction, if we raise it up and match it on the higher part, right? That's what you guys.
No, okay, so it's gonna be sloped, right?
Sure, it's going to be sloped down, but there's not going to be that step, basically. Is that-
Right.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Trying to avoid using the word level because it's
Yeah.
confusing things. It's just a gentle slope down, a small little skinny ramp, or not skinny, but not very deep ramp.
So I know this is an appeal of an approved application, and I'm just throwing a little bit of a wrench in it. What was the thought process on approving the concrete around the entire perimeter?
I can explain a little bit of that if you want. We had originally submitted a plan to do pavers, but we contacted several contractors and none of them said that we could do pavers because there was no even ground there. And so we had to, so we had an advisor. We had actually, I think we've had several advisors. So we tried to contact our advisor to let them know about the change. We never heard back from that advisor. So then my father-in-law proceeded to do the work that was recommended by the contractors, which was concrete rather than paver stone. And then we finally kind of got an understanding that we had to resubmit a new plan when we finally got in contact with someone. And then that was the resubmission of the plan with the concrete. So it was actually already done though.
Staff, do we have the original? Because I believe what happened is that the first application got denied and then they resubmitted, but it doesn't look like we have the old stuff from before, kind of showing the truth before.
I don't think something got denied. I don't remember that.
Maybe it was deferred
there originally. And I think that the DRB provided a decision, and it was appealed by the affected party at the last December meeting, I believe. And so the owner did the repair work or the replacement work in response to the feedback that was provided by the DRB that then was subsequently appealed by the original affected party. So the original design is not in this application.
Well, that's what I was trying to figure out. Where are we in the process? Because this was approved in March of last year, so it's almost been a year. So how is this appeal just happening now?
Possibly this should be a new I don't know.
So
Should this be a new application to change a stipulation?
if you could go back to page 4, the decision that was provided, Emily, or 6, I'm sorry. This is the most recent decision that mentions the patios and walkways must be flat and one consistent level from each end. The steps should be the same height at both ends of the patio, which was the language that was used by the panel that approved this. And that's the direction that we provided. There was a communication discrepancy between the time that this decision was mailed and the holiday season, that at the director's discretion, we provided the homeowner an opportunity to appeal the decision because there was a discussion about a disability and the need to have the homeowner represented by a family member. So that's why you're now seeing it the way that you're seeing it in terms of time. But yes, the original decision was in March of 2024. That decision wasn't followed, and it was subsequently discovered that the homeowner moved forward with something that wasn't approved. And then they're subsequently submitting for the concrete addition.
I'm now saying, okay, I see. So the March approval was for pavers, which is what the applicant submitted,
Correct.
or what he mentioned. And then he came back in December. Okay, with the concrete. 'Cause
Well, yeah, we didn't come back per se. We did it because we tried to get in touch with people. We never heard back. And then, like I said, the owner did it himself. And then we found out through the
Gotcha.
process, and then we
Okay.
finally resubmitted.
Yeah.
That's the way.
Yeah. Okay. So we have an appeal before us. The question is, do we have some new information or a misapplied guideline to accept the appeal, to review the application de novo? I don't know if it's really new information. It's more of there was some new information provided, but I think it was more of under a misunderstanding of what.
Yeah, I think we have clarification. If we have understanding that if we do what was just mentioned by the board, that if we can, that'll close it out along with meeting the other caveats. I think we can go ahead and complete this then.
Yes, and I do, upon checking the, page 6 of that, what was actually in the decision letter, and I don't know if you agree, Lena, but I think that this wording more or less gets across what we were trying to, of saying that should be one consistent level from end to end. And that I did mention that we suggest, but don't require, adding some kind of veneer, or brick, or any other alternative that they want, as long as it's one contiguous surface and one contiguous material.
Yeah, I think that if we hadn't used the word level and said one surface or one smooth surface, I think that would have clarified it. But again, I don't think it's worth reviewing it and going a new decision. I would be satisfied with a letter or a memo to the file so that when an inspector goes out there, they understand what we all here understand to be the case for the use of that language, if that's acceptable to staff and to our council. Because it in my mind, it's semantics.
Yeah, I mean, I think the applicant or the appellant would have to basically just withdraw their appeal and then go forward. Because just to be frank, I personally don't think this project should have been approved the way it is. So I don't want to hear it de novo, just for your guys' sake. Just to be fully transparent. So I would recommend, I think withdrawing the appeal would be the correct way to go about it. And then, I think staff has an understanding of what you guys are talking about. The applicant seems to know what you guys are talking about. And then they just move forward with, rectifying the issue to get in compliance with the approval that they have. That's my comment. So does anyone want to make a motion on the appeal?
Do we want to give the homeowner a moment to see if they would like to withdraw their appeal before we make a motion on it?
Yeah, I think we're okay with removing the appeal with the understanding that if we get it to one contiguous surface with the slope and then fulfilling the other obligations, that upon inspection, this will be completed. So.
Okay, so staff, is that fine for you guys from a record standpoint that they're withdrawing their appeal?
It would be great if the property owner could send us an email to that effect, please.
Okay, we can do that. Is there a timeline for this completion that I need to be aware of?
The timeline is still March 31st, 2025, but if there is a need for additional time, you may request a time from your advisor.
Okay, so we contact the advisor to do that. And who's our advisor currently? Because I know we've had problems in the past.
Her name is Erin Gable, but I'm Cam Adams. I'm the director of the department. I've been talking to your sister, so
yes,
you can email me.
No, and thanks for your help, Cam. You've been super helpful. It's my wife actually, but
I'm sorry.
That's okay. And we just want to we just really do appreciate all your help for providing clarity on the process. So my wife wanted to make sure I said that. So okay, sounds good. We'll reach out to you or whatnot just to get an extension because yeah, as mentioned, the homeowner has visual impairment and some other disabilities. So this process has been a little challenging for him. So we just want to make sure we give him enough time to complete the job so we can move on.
All right, great. Thank you, Satine. Thank you for being patient with us.
Yep, thank you.
All right, moving on to application H, Newport Shores Cluster. We have another appeal for the colors, I believe, or the finish of the paint. Is the appellant here? Oh, Darcel somewhere.
Yep, she's here. We just tried to unmute her.
There she is. Hello.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we certainly can. So you're appealing a decision. If you could, we need two things, or one of the two, to either have a misapplied guideline or if there's some new information on the approval. So, and you can take it away.
Okay. The first, I mean, I hope I'm given as much time to talk as these other people, but the first thing is the vertical siding that was pushed through was never voted on by cluster members. So they just decided between Richard and the president to say, oh, well, we took a vote on that, and everybody thinks it's the same like high gloss finish or semi gloss finish. Well, I hate to tell you, but I'm one of the people that lived here for 27 years, and I have always known what the standards for our paint have been. So that's the first thing. The other thing was I happened to look at an email that the president had sent me after the board meeting or the cluster social where they took this vote, and we were supposed to have 16 to meet a quorum, which is what he told you all. But what he told me in that email was that there were 15 members in attendance. So that makes me a little skeptical. I was very disheartened when I presented the fact that I made phone calls to Sherwin-Williams, spoke to the manager there. They've provided our paint here for 27 years since I've been here. I spoke to even Color Wheel in McLean, who handles multiple paints. I spoke to the owner. None of them recommend or would recommend painting your horizontal siding in semi-gloss paint. I really cannot believe that this is happening, but I was not at the cluster social, and I don't know the size of the paint samples, but I doubt very seriously that these cluster members understand that this is not just a changing, like they probably looked at the color and said, oh, it looks the same color. They have no idea how shiny this looks when the sun hits it. And I mean, this is an expensive, not just our cluster, but the whole area around here. It's all the beautiful painted or stained. When I say painted, it's a matte finish. And I'm floored. The two people, this all started when I submitted a complaint because the neighbor painted his house, and I realized, oh my gosh, what finish are they using? And when I went to the president to submit some things, he kind of joked and said, I painted my own house in semi-gloss. And I knew then I was probably in trouble with getting this through or not having it done. So they were both out of compliance and then proceeded to try to put this into, our standards. And I just think when you look at paint samples at night and when they send them through the email to the board members, whoever, I think there were only 2 or 3 that looked at this. Are you really looking at how shiny this is? I mean, that is, my complaint is also that, I mean, besides the fact that I don't want our houses in semi-gloss, the fact that I believe there were 15 votes, which is under the amount of 16 based on his email to me. And also the fact that, I understand that if you're going to paint your horizontal siding in semi-gloss, you might as well paint your vertical siding in semi-gloss, but that was not voted on, and it's clearly listed in the email transactions that were from Richard to the president, like, oh, well, they think it's that way anyway, let's just put it through, we'll approve it. And you need, and Richard telling the president, you need to add that wasn't even in there. So that's why I feel so strongly about this. I just wanted to stand up because, I have been in the design business and dealing with paint for 40 years. And it's just frustrating to me that even if 50% of the homeowners think that it's okay, I don't think they know what they're taught. They just don't realize how shiny it is. That's all I really have to say.
Okay, thank you, Darcel. On the was this was a panel decision, staff, or a?
Yes, it was a panel decision of January 7th where Emily, Samantha, and Camelia were on the panel.
Okay.
Sorry.
You guys. All right. So, did you guys realize that there was the voting situation? I mean, I don't think we can weigh in on the cluster situation because the documentation that I see in here is showing that there were 16 members present. So I more want to make sure that you guys were understanding that they were requesting semi-gloss paint in the application, and that was in fact what you guys were approving for siding.
That was the information that we were given. The understanding with that is that as happens in clusters, some of the clusters going to like it, some of the clusters not, but if the vote wins And I am usually loath to go against what the clusters have voted on as a neighborhood unless I feel like it is completely out of conformance with the Reston aesthetic and design guidelines. And in this instance, while I think I mentioned this in my note, while I personally agree that I think that this is not the best look or the best decision, I did not feel that my personal opinion outweighed what a community wanted and wanted for itself in this particular instance. If they had said they wanted it all to be neon green, we might be having a different conversation.
Okay. Samantha or Camelia, do you guys have anything to add to the kind of discussion? Did you guys hear from this affected party on that night?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Yes. And what Emily say is what I remembered as well.
Okay.
Ditto.
So the only thing, just as an architect, semi-gloss is not supposed to be used on lap siding. So I personally think it was a wrong decision. Because I mean, you can sometimes use it on trim, like exterior window trim or fascia boards, things like that. But really, satin is really the max you want to go from in a cleanability standpoint. I mean, I prefer matte or even flat paint for siding, especially when it's wood like this, because the semi-gloss is going to pick up every little nook and cranny and yeah, you can see it here in the images. And to be honest, satin and semi-gloss, I mean, they are different, but to the naked eye, they're not that different, but it does make a big deal when it's on a big surface. So that would be my only thing to me as a guideline, or like from an information standpoint, that I don't know if that's considered new information or not, but I agree with the appellant that it is not an appropriate finish, as minor as it may seem. But that's my opinion. I don't know if anyone else wants to weigh in.
I think we need to think about if this was a misapplied guideline or new information.
Correct. And that's what I'm trying to, I mean, to me, I don't know the whole household situation in the cluster from what I was submitted. There were 16 members at this meeting. And I mean, even in their meeting minutes though, I don't know how accurate they are because they're saying they approved gloss paint in the meeting minutes. And so it's like gloss isn't even, wasn't even on the table. So, I can only take those meeting minutes with a grain of salt. Yeah, like right here, it says either flat pane or gloss paint. So, yeah, I don't know. So, and it does say horizontal boards. So we could use that fact where she said, vertical was part of the motion, even though that wasn't approved by the cluster.
I do believe that there is a difference in the approval letter, there is a difference between the horizontal is only, and I might be mixing these up, that the horizontal is flat or gloss, the vertical is only flat.
The same letter says vertical has satin or semi-gloss provision.
I do remember there being I do apologize. I do remember there being a difference between what was voted on because that was what was proposed from the cluster. And it did not take the two vertical and horizontal sidings into the same consideration. Again, I agree with you, Michael, but
point being, it doesn't seem to rise to the level of either misapplied or new information, right?
Well, to me, there was new information that there wasn't technically a vote on vertical siding to be willing for them to be allowed to be changing that guideline without cluster vote on it. I mean, I don't, I'm looking at the meeting minutes here and it only explicitly calls out horizontal boards.
I hate to do this. Could I ask a question of council in an executive session?
If you'd like to
Sure,
make a
pleasure of the
motion to go
board.
into executive session.
Yeah,
I would.
Make a motion. All right, there's a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, we'll be right back. Okay, is everyone back in? I think everyone's back. All right. I am gonna make a cleansing motion that we only spoke about matters of this specific application with our executive legal counsel, and that those were the only matters spoken about. And that is that all I need to say, Tony? That sounding pretty good?
Close enough.
All right. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. I would like a motion to accept the appeal based on the fact that there is new information or that there was a misapplied guideline of accepting potential design modifications to a cluster standard that were possibly could affect the overall aesthetic cohesiveness of a neighborhood by allowing too much of a variation of paint color finish, which I think was not considered in the fact that there could be a flat home next to a semi-gloss home, which was not reviewed by the panel during that time. That's my motion.
Elena, you were muted.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. I'm going to do a roll call vote unless there's any further discussion. All right. Samantha, yes or no?
Yes.
Emily?
Am I mistaken?
Nope.
We
You're
can't
not.
vote. Abstain.
Oh,
I can't
sorry.
vote on
Oh,
this. Neither can
sorry.
Samantha.
Samantha, Emily, and Camelia are all abstaining. Sorry, my apologies. Mike B.
Mike B is against accepting the appeal.
Brian?
Yes.
Elena?
Yes.
John? Is John still with us? I think John, for the record, I think John is not on the meeting anymore. We are down to 7 members. And I vote yes. So we have 3 to 1 to 3 abstentions and 1 no vote because he's not here. Tony, what happens?
Motion fails.
Okay. Does anyone want to make another motion? Because we
No.
might be stuck in a hard place, Tony.
I mean, he dropped off.
Yeah, I don't see him anywhere.
Might I suggest a motion to defer to the end of the agenda?
I'm thinking about it. I hate to keep Darcel longer. Okay, let's have some further discussion. So Mike B, did you not like some wording in my motion?
I mean, I didn't feel as though there was sufficient cause for us to get there based on a misapplied guideline, Michael. That was my issue there. That being said, I mean, I'm the one holdout here.
I guess the big thing that to me was, what do you think, and the panel can speak, do you think the panel considered the fact that there could be a flat sheen home right next to a semi-gloss home and the impact that could have to the overall aesthetic of this neighborhood?
In terms of proximity of specific homes relative to the paint choice, I can't say, honestly. So I don't know. So
Emily or Samantha or Camelia, did you guys consider that when this was approved?
I can honestly say that we did consider that, Michael, because there is variability, just like some houses have red houses next to yellow houses and different paint textures. Yes, we did consider that, or I did consider that. I do not know about Samantha and Camelia.
Tony, can we defer this to, I mean, because we're not going to, I mean, I don't know how we're going to go. We don't have technically enough. I mean, I guess we could make another motion, but then that's going to, if that doesn't go anywhere. I mean, I know you said we can defer to the end of the agenda, but if I doubt if John dropped, he's probably not going to join back in. He might have had to go somewhere or something. I don't know. Can we defer an appeal to another meeting, or
Yes,
we can do that?
yes.
Darcel, are you still here? Can you unmute her? Would you like us to? I can defer to the end of our agenda. We have one more item.
Yeah.
And you can wait. I don't foresee that's going to go in your favor because I don't know if
Right, right. I did want to make just a note that the people in the neighborhood were actually told by the president, I believe, some false information about why we need to paint. I mean, for 30 years, we've had those, same standards. And it's only because the two people, I mean, I know this is a moot point, but our cluster did not want to change the standard. It's the two people that were out of compliance that just sort of brought it and to this meeting and laid out facts about the water runoff, and it was better for this, which was all actually false. But with that said, I really honestly do not believe that our neighbors would have voted for it had they known what that sheen would look like. Now, with that said, I'm happy to defer to another day if it gives me any greater chance, because like you, being in the architectural design field, I know this. I just didn't think other people would ever vote that through. So I'm happy to do whatever gives me any kind of chance.
Okay.
Michael, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So if we were to accept this appeal and hear the application de novo, is a representative of the HOA here? Would they be able to speak as an affected party? Could we review it without them? How does that process even go if we did accept this de novo?
Yeah, I don't know if someone from the cluster's here or not.
Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
So I also just want to point out one of the problems is that, the cluster president and the neighbor who is, who I filed the complaint, both of them were out of compliance, both. And they're both on the director of the board, and they're, it makes it a little, difficult because those two want it to go through, whether or not, I don't know. I mean, I just don't trust that they have the benefit of, or, the greater interest of everybody.
So to answer your question, Emily, we, typically if the applicant's not here, we would just defer the application. So I think what I'm hearing is I'm going to make a motion to defer the defer the appeal to the next full board meeting. And that's my motion.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Nope.
All right, all in favor of that motion, say aye.
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 Any against? Any abstentions? Samantha, Emily, and Camelia, you all are abstaining.
I think we can vote on a deferral, can't we?
I mean, I don't know that you need to because everybody else was.
All right, we're fine.
Yeah, Tony, I don't think they can, right? Just for the
You
record.
could vote on a deferral.
Oh, they can. Okay. All right. Do you guys vote affirmative in
Yes.
the deferral?
Yes, affirmative.
Camelia and Samantha? Samantha?
Yes.
Okay. So motion passes to defer 8-0. Thank you,
For
Darcel.
housekeeping
We'll see you
purposes,
next
was that
month.
previous, oh, I'm sorry, was that previous motion withdrawn or did that go through?
It failed. It failed.
Okay.
Also, Michael, can you still hear me? I just have one little comment.
Yep.
I know that they put through that there were 16, but you do have an email that I provided from the same person that told me there were only 15 at that meeting, which would not be a quorum.
Yeah, I think the tricky thing is we can't adjudicate that. We don't know.
You can't. Yeah,
don't-
you
we don't-
can't,
we
you
don't
can't
know.
say, I don't think you're telling the truth.
Right, and in your email versus the official meeting minutes of the cluster, I would assume, and I'm not a lawyer, I would assume the official meeting minutes of the cluster would win out, but that's just, that's just me. But yeah, unfortunately, I think, yeah, we'll try again next month, basically. Thank you, Darcel. All right, moving on to final application I-2235 Soapstone Drive. Is the applicant here? Looks like C&K in Reston LLC. Or no, that's kidding. Yeah, no, yeah.
Yes, the applicant is
Oh,
here.
is this an appeal too? Sorry, I'm jumping.
No, this is not an appeal.
I didn't think so, but there
Are
is
you
an affected
sure?
party.
It's
No.
not, it was deferred.
Okay.
Huzzah.
Okay, all right. Well, it was approved in concept, and then they're looking for final approval, and then we have an affected party. Okay, all right. So is the applicant here?
Yes.
And looks like there's a couple people raising their hands.
Right, everyone is unmuted.
There's someone, Davor Mitrovic. Is he part of this application? He's raising his hand.
Yes. You are unmuted.
So,
We got some feedback. I don't know who, somebody needs to mute. All right. Davor, are you there? I see you're unmuted now.
Everyone has been sent a prompt to unmute. Can anybody hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, perfect.
No, but that's John. That's the affected party.
Oh, yikes, yikes.
Hello?
Hello.
Sorry for that. I'm logged in now on a different iPad. Thank you. And let me lower this so we don't have that static. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to be here today. My name is Davor Mitrovic, and I'm the project manager for SYN Architecture and Engineering firm. I'm overseeing this project, and well, we understand that the project involves multiple parties, and we would like to thank, in behalf of the tenant and the firm, for all the parties involved and the time they invested, and with the meetings and comments and reviews for the best outcome of this project. Our team at SYN is committed to ensure that the project meets the codes and the guidelines, while also respecting the community's expectations. So we know that we have at this moment 3 comments that we have actively worked on and resolving. And if we can start with the first comment, it's in regards to the sound that would come from the compressor. I don't know if you can hear me. I'm receiving messages on my screen.
No, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry. So how we addressed this comment with a perimeter wall that will be built with composite wood, and we are adding a roof above this HVAC, and that will be on the slab on the slab that we have on the north side of the project. So that's for comment number 1.
And staff, can you go to slide 8 just so we can see what he's talking about? I believe, and just to correct me, is it that detail in the middle there, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So we have equipment on above that slab pad, and we are enclosing that with composite wood, and we are adding a polycarbonate corrugated roof above that to attenuate the noise that will be coming from this equipment. And we have done research to see if the decibels that will come out from these different equipments and how it will be attenuated with this involving structure.
Okay, you want to go to the next one?
Okay, so that's for comment number 1. And for comment number 2, it was okay, so I'm looking at my screen and I'm having a little bit of difficulty here. Okay, so comment number 2 was that we have on the west side of the building the existing asphalt path that's connected to the internal side of the wall to RA path. And what the concern here is that it has gravel that has been filling up with the years. And I believe that the property manager has already started with the work to remove this gravel and to clear the path so it can be usable as it was before. That would be for comment number 2. And for comment number 3, yes, we see there that we have this blue rectangle that is showing a path that is at this moment with a lot of gravel. And the concern was to remove that, to clean that path. So what they will do is they will hire a licensed and insured contractor to do the work of removing this gravel by hand digging for that area, for the blue area. And for comment number 3, it refers to making a secure access path from the sidewalk that we have on Soapstone Drive, so we can continue, so you can continue towards the other sidewalk, and that would be with hard surface, that would be with stepstone, and yes, with that one, that's 16 by 16, that, and it would be placed side by side, creating a 15 long space, well, a 15 long step with 6-inch spacing or 8-inch spacing in between them. So these 3 comments have been comments that we worked on, and we have addressed them. This 3rd comment will also be done by the property manager that is hiring what will be the personnel for this. Any questions?
No, I think that addresses that. And then staff said that all the other design items are just approved in concept, right? So they're open for discussion still as well.
That is correct.
Okay. Could we hear from the affected party, please?
Yes.
And
John, you're unmuted.
so just a reminder, John, affected parties have 3 minutes to state their case, but I think you're representing a group, so you would have 5 minutes.
Hopefully I won't take even half that.
Perfect.
I'm John Farrell. I am speaking tonight in my capacity as president of the Colonial Oaks Homeowners Association. Colonial Oaks common area wraps around the subject property. In fact, if you can somebody can pull up a drawing. Yeah, those trees are on Colonial Oaks property that you're seeing here. The trees closest to the building. And you can see our townhouses, and that corner there is actually a pin in the paved RA trail. That pin is right there. So as you can see, our common area comes within 5 to, I don't know, 7 feet of the existing highs. And my association, in a general sense, is delighted to see that what has been a vacant building is going to, for I think 6 years, is finally going to have some usage. But the things that have happened is the HVAC and other mechanicals that were outside used to be on the downside of the drawing, the existing high store, and they're being relocated to the north side. And so obviously we're going to be hearing those mechanicals, and you could see the townhouses are about 10 feet higher than the store. So as a result, those of you who deal with noise attenuation know that noise goes up, bounces off the ground, and it goes up. So when you're above the noise source, you're going to hear the noise more than if you were below it or even level with it. So we had asked the applicant, and that's the change that you see tonight, to put in a solid fencing and a roof on the mechanicals so that we don't have to listen to the mechanicals going on and off all night. And the applicant has agreed to do that, and we hope you'll approve that. The second issue you can see on this drawing is that there's a path that leads from the front door of the what they'll label as the dry cleaners, because it was at one point, they became a Highs then a dry cleaners. There is a path that leads from that front door down to the RA path that goes ultimately under Soapstone. And the section that's buried is the section between the gravel driveway and the RA path, and it's become over the years buried with gravel that has migrated from the driveway into the path, such that you don't know that there's a path there at all. And grass has grown up in between the gravel, and it's been neglected. The last thing was, can you give us the photograph, LaShonda? Is that we had a problem on the other side of this convenience center with a goat trail between the Soapstone sidewalk and the 7-Eleven building. And we hope to avoid that here, because if you come off the Soapstone sidewalk, you're either walking across grass or you're walking out into the parking lot. And rather than create another goat trail, the first goat trail you can see has been mitigated by the installation of flagstone. Not there. If we can go back to the picture we had before. There you go. Okay, so you can see this. There's between the Soapstone, that curve of the Soapstone sidewalk, and the Domino's, the property owner has put in flagstone, and that's great. People walk on the flagstone, they are not tracking mud all over the place. And the applicant is proposing to put in a similar hard surface pieces between on their property, between the soapstone sidewalk and the internal sidewalk. All of these accommodations and mitigations enhance the experience for the neighbors, and we think improves the application. And we hope that when you approve the application, you'll incorporate these changes into your approval. I'm happy to answer any questions. I hope that was less than 3 minutes.
Thank you, John. I'll see if anyone has any questions for you if we go around, but I think it was succinct and clear. So let's go back to the applicant, and I'm going to see if there's any questions for you. So, and just remember, board, there are open, they're kind of doing a full exterior remodel of this building. So all of those items are still, you can still ask questions about, etc. So, Samantha, do you have any questions?
No question. Thank you.
Emily?
I have questions. So I heard the applicant discussing bringing in a contractor to remove the gravel access road from the kind of parking lot area to where the old HVAC and dumpsters used to be. Is the intention when that gravel is removed to unearth, as the affected party has rightly pointed out, the pathway that we can see on page 41 of our notes, again, that connects the front door of the coffee shop to the RA pathway? Because in my notes, when we originally looked at this application, that was one of my concerns, that there are goat paths and desire paths, and right now that area is just full of gravel and mud. And I think that that is something that we'd like to have rectified.
Yes. So the comment was so that we could have this path cleaned up from all the gravel that has been accumulating with the years, and to have it working for the neighbors so they can access directly to the rest of the areas without having any interruptions or going through mud or different well, we could say that if this would remain as it was, then you get, as the comment was addressed from the first start, that you get to the other side with your shoes dirty.
So yeah, so I guess I'm a little confused because your landscaping plan unfortunately cuts off right before the area that we're talking about at the bottom of the page. So it's very unclear to me as to whether or not this, that area is included, and it's not listed in the scope of work. So that's one of the reasons I am seeking the clarification is the landscaping plan shows the existing gravel path, but does not mention that it's going to be removed. And there is no inclusion of that asphalt pathway that goes from the entrance to the existing RA path. So I suppose that's more of a comment at this point than a question.
Emily, just before we move off of that one, I just want to address that just for the sake of discussion. As if you go to page 9, there's a letter from I think it's the property owner who addresses that, because you're right, you make a point, it's not shown on the plan. And as I was part of the last panel that looked at this. And the last iteration of the application showed a variety of different paths and connections to the existing RA path. And what we said, because the owner and the applicant were willing to unearth this existing asphalt path, I hope I'm saying that right, seemed like the most kind of natural connection from the shopping center to the RA trail, rather than having to add a new connection that previously was shown like closer to the plaza and stuff like this. So it seemed like the team was agreeable to doing that, and it seemed like it was just kind of the best, kind of most natural connection.
Awesome. No, I super appreciate that. And I guess the last thing is asphalt that's been buried. Are we planning on replacing that asphalt or just unearthing it and hoping that it's still there in some serviceable condition?
The intention is so that it is on servable condition, and this will be done by the property manager, as I was mentioning.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi, may I interrupt? My name is Hisan Kim. I'm the tenant of this place. And then when I talked with the property manager and the owner this morning, and they said that they already hired the contractor and then they started, and then the pathway will be done the end of this month. And then it's going to be serviceable and very clean, as the letter says that the gravel will be removed completely, and they're going to clean, and they're gonna have this so that the pathway will be noticeable and they're very clean. So the pedestrian or any customers and people can walk on it. So it's gonna be more natural of the pathway that it used to be. So they're gonna restore pathway. That is their purpose. I don't know whether it's gonna be right the response to your question or not. That's what I heard from my property manager. They're trying to restore the pathway, and they're willing to cooperate the HOAs, the needs and requirements.
Fantastic. Thank you. That's all I had, Michael.
Okay. Mike, do you have any questions?
Negative, sir. Thank you.
Brian?
Maybe just one or two. On page 8, where we're looking at kind of the details of the enclosures, I guess just one question about like the height of the fence. And I'm just curious, I like that they match your calls, but I'm just curious why the decision was made on the left side to not go tall enough to fully enclose the equipment. In that detail 4 on the left side there, where we're kind of looking at a side, that one works too. On the left one, is there a reason the fence doesn't go all the way up to hide the equipment?
Yeah, so my name is Yenny from SYN Architecture Engineering. And when we check with the zoning department from the Fairfax County, so in order to take this as addition to the building, addition to the footprint of the building, any enclosure should not exceed 6 feet height. And since our compressor will be placed on the platform, which is the on the platform where we are showing on the left-hand side of the image.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we are placing the roof structure and not on the top of the equipment.
Okay, thank you. And then on the right one, where it looks like, again, you brought the height of the fence up to match, which I like. So the roof is actually going to be below the height of it and kind of hidden from view. So I just want to make sure, is there a means for it as water hits that roof and runs down for it to get out? Is it flush with the backside of the fence, or is there a gap so that water can still move out?
Yes, we have also thought about that, and it will have the downspout and everything, so it will have the drain for water and everything.
That's it for me.
So just piggyback on that, because that was kind of my question as well. So there's going to be a continuous gutter along that shed? Is there going to be just weep holes kind of cut through the fence? I'm just a little confused at how water gets out. And then B, is there some sort of gate or door to get into these, at least the one on the right? I'm assuming to service it, you got to be able to get in it.
It has, yes, it has the door so you can access and have maintenance of this equipment, and it will have drain with a downspout that will be inside the,
Okay, it'll be concealed on the inside of the fence, and then
Correct.
there'll be some sort of small
yes,
outlet somewhere. So which side is the door going on?
it's in between both concrete pads. Yes, on that side.
Okay. So there'll be a gate of some sort that matches the fence panel.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. Let me see if John has a question real quick. Can you guys unmute John real quick?
Yeah, Mike, I wanted to clarify something that was discussed earlier, and then I do have a question about the left-hand side. That's the those are the the walk-in freezer and walk-in cooler. But let me come back to that. Is there not going to be a roof or on top of the walk-ins?
So the way I see the drawing, and I could be wrong, is that they're, the walk-ins are a self-contained exterior rated enclosure. They're usually going to have a TPO roof of some sort on top.
Right.
And the condensers, it looks like they're locating on the side underneath of the roof enclosure. So the area that's making the noise is under this kind of right-hand lower portion that's still right next to the walk-ins, but they're like the lower portion with the roof.
So like they're going to be mounted on the slab? Is that what we're saying, Michael?
That's my understanding, and someone from SYN can correct me if I'm misspeaking there.
They need to be unmuted.
Yes, that's exactly how we are structuring and how we are solving this.
Okay, thank you for that. And obviously we'd like to see that in the decision. Can I go back to the drawing that showed it's the old drawing that shows the gravel and the walking path? I just want to make clear what the HOA is asking for, which is we are not asking for this gravel driveway. We are not asking for the gravel driveway to be removed. It's fine. I understand why it's gravel. What we want, hard to call it excavated because it's not that deep a cover of gravel. And based on what I've seen when I've gone over there, the hard surface might be concrete, it might be asphalt. It depends on the day and where the light angle. It's still in good shape. So we're not asking for the gravel driveway that accesses the side of the building to be removed. We're just asking for the gravel to be removed from the path. So I don't want that misunderstood. They keep the gravel driveway as they need it. It's just restore the path that connects the building to the.
Yeah, there's like a diagonal section that's covered up basically by this gravel and a little bit of grass, which they kind of had they had a picture, well, a rudimentary sketch with the blue angle drawing. I don't know where that one is, Steph. I don't have the page, but that basically, you kind of see it.
Colonial Oaks is not asking for that driveway to be removed, just for clarity's sake. Just the gravel that's accumulated on the trail or the path.
Gotcha. Okay. Emily?
Thank you, John, for clarifying that. I just wanted to mention that again, when we originally deferred this application, and we can talk about this a little bit more, but I do think that gravel pathway should be removed. It's a vestigial pathway that's no longer, there's going to be a patio there. The mechanical service is on the other side. This was to load and unload dumpsters. And I think that if it's left in place, it will look like the intention was not there for this to be a finished landscaped and community space. I'd much rather see that as open lawn area rather than gravel bleeding into lawn, and just slowly becoming a weed patch. So.
That's your call. I just wanted to be clear what Koa was asking for.
Yeah, and I think, Emily, on slide 7, I think they're proposing new from what I'm seeing new boxwoods, new boxwoods basically going in that area.
Right, but it still calls, the landscape plan only calls out the existing gravel path. It does not call out that it was been removed. I think they have clarified that the entirety of the old gravel drive will be removed.
Gotcha. Okay.
I just want to make sure that
Okay.
that is clear, because it's not
And so,
all.
and then appropriate ground cover is to be put back, whether it's
Correct.
grass or whatever. Okay.
Mhm.
We can put that in the motion. Okay. All right. Camelia, did you have any questions?
Okay, thank you.
Brian, did you get to finish? Sorry. Did you have
Yeah, I
any other
finished. Yep, I'm good.
Elena
No questions, thank you.
and John he did not join back in. Okay, so I have a question. It's more about the design. So from an exterior standpoint, what are you guys doing paint wise, if anything, to the building? It's pretty, all you're doing is adding these new windows on the side, and the paint or stucco is staying as is. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And the roof is staying as is. What about any light modifications?
We're not adding any extra light to the existing structure.
Are you getting rid of these really old yellowed out lights that are on the front?
Can I see the picture where you're indicating?
You can't see it there. It's behind that right column. You can't see it.
Like 43.
43
have
or
another
55,
picture?
yeah.
Yeah, that one on the right there.
So at this moment, we don't have any other plan to demolish or adding any light on the exterior side. So if that's a recommendation, that I want to have our clients to share her thoughts on that.
Okay. Yeah, I figured you guys are doing this brand new beautiful store, I'm sure, on the inside, and that light, I don't know who owns it. That might be, I don't know if the landlord technically owns that, they own the whole building, so they may not want you to do it. It is a suggestion, and I'm not going to hold up the night. I just was questioning it. And then I'm trying to find my slide of where I had my and then I wanted to talk about the signage real quick, because you go to the sign. So the only thing I couldn't tell, like, what the true height of this sign was. It just felt like it's going to be very large, and how it's mounted is a little unorthodox, with it being on the slope and with a raceway behind it. To me, I didn't know if there was a way to make it cleaner. I don't know, 28 inches. Do we know if that signage drawing is in fact to scale, as best as to your knowledge? I mean, you guys probably didn't design the signage, so you're probably not the right ones to ask. It just seems large. And I don't know if anyone else noticed that or kind of questioned it, but I'm hesitant to approve the sign at the moment. Just because I feel like it's something that just kind of maybe was in the package that not everyone really looked at. So I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention. I just think, even in this rendering with the raceway behind it, when it's on the brown roof with like the black raceway that kind of matches the other stuff. And then I don't know, there's just something that was throwing me off about the sign. I don't know if anyone else was looking at it or had a comment on it now that you're looking at it. But it was just something I wanted to bring to the board's attention. Maybe I'm the only one who cares on it. I don't know, but
No, I mean, I can see your point that like kind of all the, even in that rendering, all the stuff behind it could be a little distracting. I mean, I wonder if it could be brought forward and mounted on this kind of metal canopy thing out in front of the building, possibly as another option to possibly clean it up.
Yeah, just all that signage and that, you know, with village centers, and this isn't, I don't think this qualifies as a village center. Staff, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe it is a village center. But typically we try to keep signage to a minimum. Like if you look at the 7-Eleven and the Domino's and the other place across the way, they have very, you know, minimal, you know, there isn't a giant 7-Eleven, you know, stick on the front of that building. They're all pretty uniform, small in comparison to the face that they're on. And this one is just going to be a little bit in your face. Like the old sign was sitting just on that front band board. And I'm hesitant that this thing's going to look like a big, you know, billboard sign that, you know, is on the side of the road. And it doesn't really, I think the rest of the improvements are fine. I think the signage is just something that I'm not ready to approve yet, in my opinion. Emily?
Sorry, not unmuted. I think I agree with you, Michael, with the raceway being in the background. And one, I think it's just sitting here being stark white in this rendering, as opposed to like, you know, against the keeping the beige and the brown and sort of more of these muted bronzy tones. But I think a really good case study for this perhaps might be Ariake just down the road. They do have, I mean, that's the old McDonald's that has a very similar roof structure. They have a sign that sits up above on something similar, but the raceway is more like underneath, and then it's kind of like imposed into it. So I agree. I think that there's a neater or a better way to deal with this, but that is a precedent that we have just down the road of a sloped roof structure with larger signage that I think does it slightly, you know, does it successfully for that case.
That's crazy. I go to Ariake once a week and I've literally never noticed that sign.
See, that's because it's dark red against a brown roof.
Well, it's on like it's also on the face that you don't really drive up and see.
You don't go sit by the koi pond, Michael? Come on. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, sorry guys.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen that before, but I see your point. I just think maybe it's because there's the brown roof. I don't know. Maybe, and then also just the overall size. Like I just would be interested if there's, you know, just 28 inches. I just would want to make sure that this is to scale up there. Because I think it might be overscaled, and I think I might be worrying about something that I don't need to be worrying about. But it just seems awfully big for the building. So just my 2 cents. Everything else, all the other improvements are fine and approvable in my stance. Anybody have any other thoughts, comments that I go around to everybody?
I have one more thing. Sorry, guys.
Yep.
So, and I know Brian may have addressed this in the panel meeting because I was asked to consult on it. Still showing on the plans is a stepping stone pathway going from the trail to the new patio space. And I heard the applicant mention that. But I am still concerned because there's a pretty, it's not significant, but there's grade change, and they've shown it as having steps on the plan, but then the pavers and gravel that they have suggested wouldn't really fit the application of doing steps. So that's, I'm asking for clarification on that line item. I think a connection right there would be super handy and encourage people who are coming up the trail to pop right onto the patio, go inside and have a cup of coffee. Love the intention there. I'm just worried that on that slope, with gravel and pavers that are loose set and only, 2 inches thick, that's gonna not be a very safe walking surface. And something that's just gonna need a lot of maintenance over time. And I know that they're connecting to an existing asphalt area. And while I'm not enthused about the asphalt patch that's remaining right next to the nice new patio, I think that if we're gonna have an asphalt trail connecting to, or an asphalt trail and an asphalt little landing area, that it might just be more effective and efficient to make that an asphalt pathway connection as well. But Brian, what was your discussion in panel?
We said our discussion was if they restored the asphalt trail that we talked about a lot, connected to the trail closer to Soapstone, that they did not need to make another connection at the patio to the RV trail.
Okay, so that has been removed from their plans.
I think you're right. I think we should leave it to ask the applicant, because you're right, it's showing on there, but I thought the understanding was that it was not needed, so it is ambiguous right now. If we could ask the applicant to clarify that.
Yes, let me the answer to your question. Yes, the first that we suggested the kind of the shortcut from the patio to a trail, it connected directly, so it's kind of the shortcut. And then somebody comes from the trail and then they come to the patio directly. That's the reason why I suggested the shortcut from the patio to a trail directly. And then HOA, maybe the members suggested restore the pathway by removing the gravel. So that's why we requested the property owner to help us, and they decided to do that. So as Brian mentioned, that it's not necessary. That's why we moved the shortcut from the patio to a trail.
Okay, so the intention there is to not have that connection anymore, because that was shown. I guess I suppose my final question is that we have landscape plan option 1 and option 2 that was approved, and there's some differences between those that are getting me lost in the sauce. But yes, as long as there is a connection, I honestly think that you should probably do both, because people are still going to use that little cow path, that line of least connection, depending on where they're going and or coming from. But as long as it's not a safety hazard there, which I think that a dry laid paver pathway would be, and that you guys are restoring the other asphalt path, I'm not going to say I would make it a requirement, but I think that's going to be something that you're going to end up wanting down the line later. And if they're already there pouring asphalt, I would suggest doing it now anyway, but that's a suggestion, not a requirement at this point.
Okay, I got it. I brought up the shortcut first time before I got the comments from the Colonial Works, John Farrell. He's the representative president, and he suggested 2 comments for the property owner. That's why we forget about the shortcut that I brought up. And then if you suggest, I agree with your idea. I think the shortcut is gonna best way for the people who get to the store, instead of the walking around to get to our store. I will do it. Yeah, I think that's a really great idea. And then regarding the signage, I think that we have a second branch in the Fairfax, Route 29. That's a new store. It has the same signage, but it's not really big. And then even though we have the roof, and that we're using the best sign company in the Maryland. They are doing a lot of great job. So when I consulted the signage with that company, they say that they do not have any problem to install the signage. It's not really big, and it's a roof is the brown color, and the signage the white color. That's why it's really stand out and looks really big. It's not really big. So if you want me to size it down, I will do that. I'm willing to do that. Of course, I will follow the standard and the suggestion of the board members.
Thank you. John, you have one more thing?
Yeah, Michael, I wanted to help you on the size of the sign. That band board looks, and I've walked past this building way too many times. I think that band board is about 21 inches already. So if they're telling you the sign above it is only going to be 28, I think the scaling on the picture is way off. The other thing I wanted to share with Emily is that that's a pretty steep slope from where that patio, it's already in place. From that patio, the direct line down to the trail is pretty steep, and I think they were going to have either 3 or 4 steps in order to eat the grade, and so so it's gonna be multiple steps to get from one to the other. That's their call. They said, hey, look, if we're gonna do the other path, we wouldn't put in the steps, and it's fine with me. So I think that's why there was some willingness to let them eliminate, because it's not gonna, it's not gonna be what did you guys say earlier tonight? A smooth path. It's gonna have to have steps in order to eat the grade. Thank you, Michael, for your indulgence.
Yep. All right. So does someone want to make a motion?
I'll try a motion.
Let's hear it.
I'm going to make a motion to approve the application as submitted with the following stipulations. 1, the existing asphalt path will be restored to connect to the existing RA trail, and that the existing gravel path be removed and restored with appropriate ground cover. 2nd, the DRB suggests updating this is just a suggestion. The DRB suggests updating the building mounting lighting, and if changes are made, a separate application be made to the DRB for the lighting. I wonder if I could do this in the same motion. My 3rd stipulation is that we defer approval of the signage to allow the applicant to restudy the size, finish, and location. And that's it.
I'll second it. And just some further discussion on the sign. I think the drawing provided is a little out of scale. So I think there may not need to be any resizing of the size of the sign. I just would like a more accurate to scale drawing and showing existing dimensions maybe of that fascia board. I think that's right below the sign would be very helpful, because the gutter kind of splits it down the middle, which kind of makes it look like it's 2 smaller pieces, when in reality it is like, I don't know if it's quite 21 inches like John was saying, but it's pretty, I mean, it's definitely over 12, and it's, it's closer to 18 than it is 12. So I think putting a dimension on that would be very useful. So just that's some further clarification for the client. I don't necessarily think you need to definitely make the sign smaller. I just want to see a more to scale depiction of it. And then if it is the same size that you have right now, maybe you do consider a slightly smaller scale. So further discussion. There's a motion. There's a second. Any other? All right. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Any against? Any abstentions? All right. Motion passes 7-0.
Cannot wait to drink coffee. Let's go.
All right. Thank you, guys. I'm pulling up my agenda here. We don't have anything else Oh, we do. No. That's January's agenda.
So we might have
We have a question perhaps from the last applicant.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify that because I mean this whole process has been pending and then it's been just significantly delayed our construction. So all these comments can be submitted later, or do we have to go through another meeting? I just want to clarify.
Yeah, so the project was approved.
Good.
Now formally approved, minus the couple of the stipulations. So the signage would just need to come back before us. We probably could review that, not at full board. So we could clarify that to just be a panel. And the other thing was a suggestion that if you guys are going to replace the lighting, that would need to be a separate application. So you don't need to, that would just be a moot point. You don't have to do that. That's just a suggestion. And then what was your first thing, Brian? You said
that the existing asphalt path be restored to connect to the RA trail and that the existing gravel.
Yeah, so that you just have to, that is just a part of the motion that you would then have to oblige by. So the only thing that really needs to come back is the signage. But otherwise everything is approved and you can start, construction, assuming you get the letter next week from us and there's no appeal by anybody, and you have your building permit. So
Michael, with unanimous consent, you are saying that this application for the signage can go to a panel meeting?
Let's take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any against? Okay, you can go to a panel meeting. You can even throw it on my panel since I was the one who, assuming I don't know when they'll submit this information, but it might be helpful. So. Does that make sense? So you're good to go.
Thank you so much.
Okay, great. I finally found my agenda. We don't have anything else to talk about. So do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Have a great
Thank you,
night.
staff.